So, יש לנו יום כל כך מיוחד, ופעם הראשון בארץ, אני חושב, שאנחנו באמת רוצים לעשות איזה סקירה, איזה סיכום, איפה אנחנו עם הדהרמה, שזה בעצם סיפור של 50-60 שנה. איפה אנחנו? איפה הדהרמה? מה קורה? איך הדהרמה נכנס בתוך החברה? איפה זה? מה יהיה? What's happening? לא היה לנו קודם את ההזדמנות באמת to take stock, you say in English, to take stock. Where are we with the Dharma in our society? So it's מאוד מאוד מיוחד, את האירוע מאוד מיוחד, מאוד creative. So we have 4 sessions במשך היום, and this is the first one, and there'll be 3 of us speaking, right? It'll be us 3. So I'll start, אני מתחיל. It's okay if I move to English, זה אני, ככה מה לעשות, I have no shame. But just apologize, you know, זה אני. And then we'll hear Yossi and Yaakov Raz. And then there'll be some discussion panel, and there'll be 4 sessions במשך היום. And the first one is with us 3. And there'll be chance to ask questions and so on. So, אני אתחיל קצת, איך זה קרה בעצם בהתחלה. לפני 2 משהו כזה, פתאום קמתי בבוקר, והבנתי, אנחנו בעולם אחר. ויש כמה דברים ממש ספציפי שגורם את זה אצלי. Some really strong messages. I suddenly got strong messages. One is that my book, which is not a beginning book on how to do mindfulness. It's a Dharma book that goes all the way to the end of the road, the Wakening. It's a full Dharma book, and yet it became bestseller. I thought, my God, I thought, you know, maybe 10 people will read this book. So that sort of woke me up. Secondly, I started to go to pubs and bars in Israel all over the place and having fun and drinking a bit of beer. No monks here, no monks. Okay, I can say that. But more important than that, I realized how the young people in Israel really want another message. They're really in crisis. They're desperate. All the pubs I went to were totally full, packed. And people saying, we need another message. The world is in crisis. And we lost meaning. And so, but the fact that I went to now maybe 25 pubs and they've all been full, I was in shock. Another message came. I was teaching with my daughter. She's a CBT practitioner. And we're using the same language. So we were teaching psychologists, same language, Dharma and CBT, so much similarity of language and of approach. And so many things happening all the time. I just got an invitation to the Parliament in England to give a workshop on mindfulness, which I call Erut, and actually I call Dharma. But for convenience, we can use the word mindfulness. And so all of these things together made me realize that we're in another place completely. We're now in another world. Raz and myself were just talking before how we were kind of lonely Buddhists in the end of the 70s and beginning of the 80s in Israel. few people in the world and few people here in Israel, maybe, lonely Buddhists. And look at the situation now. So something is radically changed, and what's happening is the Dharma is doing it. Dharma is taking us. A deep spiritual teaching that is not personal, but is running through human beings, is doing the job that it needs to do. It's arrived 60 years ago in the West, and it's doing its thing. We need it, and it's here. 2,500 years it's taken to get here. Okay, we can be patient. Sablanut, it's okay. But it's doing its thing. And I feel that's an amazing phenomena. But I think it's very important to look at it culturally, and how the Dharma is arriving in the culture and taking the forms that the Western culture allows. In the mythology of the way the Dharma arrived in Tibet, it arrived very similar way. I don't know exactly how it happened 2,000 years ago, but there's a famous book called 84 Siddhas, and it's a very, very famous traditional book. And how did Dharma arrive in Tibet? Crazy guys, like Raz and myself maybe, crazy guys just started to kind of bring a teaching of spirituality, very pure, very simple. They were sadhus, they were crazies, and they went to Tibet, and then grew Tibetan Buddhism from there. And it's something similar in the West. There's a reset happening of thousands of years of history of Buddhism. There's a reset, a chidush, a start again in the Western world, at least in the, shall we say, more open tradition of based on the Theravada teaching and Zen. Very simple. Be here, liberate. You've got one life. What are you going to do with it? And that message has arrived in the West and is doing things. It's moving. It's changing things. So I think it has huge implications in a world in crisis. I think it's really important what's happening. And it's not discussed. And that's why 2 years ago, more or less, I had that sort of inspiration. I said, we have to talk about it. And I invited seniors from all the different streams of the Dharma in Israel. Let's meet. And we had 3 or 4 meetings of just a small group, really working on what is happening in Israel, how is the Dharma arriving. Israel is a model of the Dharma in the West, but still it's Israel, it's this culture, and it has its own character. And how is it, what's going on? How is it developing? And where is it going to go? And how can we help it? I have a nice quote from Kabat-Zinn. In one of his mails, we correspond, Kabat-Zinn, myself, we have a sort of email correspondence. And he said one time, I really sense that the Dharma itself is doing this and is now simply too important to the well-being of the planet and all beings for it to remain contained within Buddhism. It's really for humans and has been all along. In the understanding of Paticca Samuppada, the dependent origination, is a very holistic attitude, a very holistic understanding. It takes us out of a place of, shall we say, sibatiyut. We are not in the place of simple linear cause and effect. The Dharma is arriving in the West because of many, many different factors that are just right. A kind of collection of factors and collection of karma, and you people, and all of us, and the time, and things we can't understand. So there's a very much a movement of the Dharma which is very often hidden. And we're not going to see it it's not people that stand up and say, I'm bringing Dharma. It's not that. It's going in through the cracks in the society. It's going where it's needed. It's creating new languages. It's creating new ways of doing things. On the way, it's creating big problems also. It's the way people in Google will do mindfulness in order to sell more stuff. It's got all of that. The way mindfulness is used in the American army. There are many problematic areas that need thinking about and need understanding and need sensitivity. But the fact is, it's going, it's moving, it's coming in this way or another way or this way, another way. And I see it as a holistic thing. That means that it's not going to be controllable. Nobody's in charge of this. It's not controllable. It's a teaching, and that's the beauty in a way of the Dharma. It's a teaching that's inserting itself subtly here and there and there and there. And I see it, for example, בדוגמה של פסיכולוגיה, כמו אמרתי, דיבורים עם הבת שלי. How the language of Dharma has moved into CBT, but people might say, well, it's nothing to do with Buddhism. Of course. Beseder. Never mind. Buddhism is doing its job. You don't need to have an ego called Buddhism. I need to know that I'm the one. You don't need that. It's doing the job. So the languages are changing. Yes, okay, even mindfulness happening in California and Silicon Valley, okay, but it's moving, it's doing things. The languages are changing, it's dripping in here, dripping in there. It's in hospitals, it's in prisons, it's in clinics, it's in business. It's millions and millions of people that are going to retreats and practicing weekly, and it's huge. It's huge. The agenda, I have an agenda, and my agenda in this is, if we acknowledge that this is happening, and this is in a way why the meeting is important here, all of us, if we acknowledge that it's happening, that's a really important step in giving it more space. In other words, we are aware of the Dharma moving into culture and society. That awareness itself does something. And that's why I think this meeting is helpful to the Dharma. Just for us to be aware that it's happening, and it's shaking the ground, gives it authority, gives it space, gives it acknowledgement, gives it weight. So I think that's important to this meeting to me. That's my agenda, that we become aware of the way that the Dharma is moving, whether we like it or not, and how it into the culture, and the culture seems ready for it, and we are part of it. And so giving it legitimacy is my personal agenda. I want to, quizat missionaire maybe. Never mind. But it's making a statement, basically. We're in this meeting, we're making a statement. The Dharma has fully arrived. What does that mean for us? It's in the street. This is radical. This can make a radical change to the lives of many, many people. Radical, radical change to the lives of many people. So I think, I don't, how long we... So I actually don't have that much more to say. I can even be shorter than planned. I think that one thing that I do want to say is that there are many questions. It's not at all kind of known. We're in unknown territory here. Indeed, Dharma took 2,500 years to get here. What it's doing is not controllable because of paticca samuppada. We're not in charge of the way society will use it. We can help it as much as possible to give it depth and give it authenticity and make sure that we are in the world of Dharma and not just in the world of minimal technique called mindfulness in order to feel a bit better. But we're really in the world of Dharma. We're encouraging a deeper view of this. But there are many, many questions and things we have to be careful about and things to be sensitive of. Ethics is one of them. How are we going to help the sila, samadhi, panya? So mindfulness is a sign that people are really wanting the samadhi, and that's fine as a kind of entrance gate into the society. Go for samadhi, great. But don't forget sila. And then what is panya, the wisdom? So here's questions. Are we leaving behind the power of sila? It's always going to start somewhere. So I don't have any problem the fact that it's starting with samadhi let it flower. But there's a lot of Dharma waiting and still needing to arrive, and out there that the society hasn't yet taken on. And in a way, we have responsibility to say, don't forget this, don't forget that, and don't forget sila, don't forget ethics, don't forget how we are. In our keenness for practice, we're forgetting how we are in the world, how we relate, how we interact. What is the power of this action we're doing? And what is the result, the waves that I'm making in the world? Hagalim she'ani oseh ba'olam. It is the same weight, the same importance as meditation practice. It's no different. So that's an example of a question. How are we going to kind of encourage aspects of Dharma that have been left behind or that have been less important? And one of them is ethics. I think actually that's it. That's enough for the moment. And we have